Viewer contributions make local programming possible on WNIN. Become a member of WNIN with your contribution so we can continue to make this programming available. Visit WNIN.org and click on the donate button.
We'll talk about the budget and other legislative issues with Indiana State Representative Alex Burton. WNIN Lawmakers starts right now. Welcome to WNIN Lawmakers. I'm Noah Alatza, Chief Communications Officer for the University of Evansville. Before we check in with Representative Burton, here is a report from Indiana Public Broadcasting on what happened in the General Assembly this week.
The Senate Republican budget proposal differs from its House counterpart in three key ways. It does not expand school vouchers. It holds back more than $3 billion in reserve, and it tightens the eligibility for child care vouchers to eliminate a wait list. House Republicans unveiled their pitch for a sweeping property tax overhaul and pushed it through the chamber. A fiscal analysis reports local governments will lose out on nearly $1.8 billion over the next 3 years. Republicans say that is a decrease in the increase. Democrats say it provides minute cuts for homeowners and bigger wins for businesses. And a House committee scaled back and refocused a controversial measure to eliminate DEI programs in state agencies and educational institutions. Instead of mandating the closure of programs, the bill now levies significant fines and outlines unlawful discrimination in education, employment, and licensing. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Lauren Chapman.
We're now joined by Indiana State Representative Alex Burton, who represents parts of Evansville. Thanks so much for being here, Alex.
Thanks so much, Noah. Thanks for having me.
Always good to see you. So I first wanted to start with something in the state that's been of great discussion, at least this session. It's SB 1. That's the property tax bill. Where does that stand right now?
Yeah, unfortunately, it passed the House yesterday. And so now I'm sure between leadership, they're having a lot of conversations now as to what the final version will look like and how they can work with the governor's office to actually get something that he'll sign into law. Yeah. You say unfortunately, so I'm assuming you did not support SB 1. I did not support SB 1. And frankly, this puts a lot of communities at risk, not just urban areas, not just rural areas, not just suburban areas, but everyone will be impacted by this. And I think that it puts local governments, it really squeezes what they have to offer to communities using tax dollars. And I think there were other ways and other avenues for us to have pursued as opposed to what we were presented with. The chairman of Ways and Means presented an amendment, I want to say Amendment 36, to the House floor. There wasn't any time to look at the fiscal, the real impact that it'll have on communities, but it was almost like a last minute change that we had to really make a decision on. And I was part of a group that chose not to vote for the Senate package. Alex, we also know this includes language that would increase funding for charter schools. We know at one time you worked for the EVSC Public School District in Evansville, obviously. What are your thoughts on increasing funding for charter schools? Yeah, certainly I love and appreciate the work that Signature's doing, and if they can continue to expand, great. But at the same time, that shouldn't be a detriment to the public school system. I think there is a myriad of issues that needs to be addressed within that system, whether we're talking about teacher compensation or just the overall quality of our students' education. We're certainly at a time where things are uncertain, and we need to make sure that all of our students who are graduating from high school right now have the opportunity to be employed, enlisted, or enrolled. Right? That's where the state has really dedicated its time and energy to make sure that that is the reality for all students. And I want to make sure that we not only get there, but making sure that students have an opportunity to pursue the avenue that they want to. What is your message? I'm just curious, and I don't want to stick with this too long. We've got a lot to get to, but what is your message to folks working in public schools, students, parents, teachers, who see SB 1, see how it could perhaps take some of that funding away? What do you tell them? Yeah, I think now that we're coming to the end of session right now, I think a lot of conversation needs to be had about what we want our schools to look like. We have a new diploma pathway that's going into place. but are our parents satisfied with the education that their children are offered? In other communities, there's a charter school in every corner. That is not our reality here in Evansville. We have Joshua Academy and Signature School who are under the authorization of EVSC. And so I think as we get ready to embrace a new superintendent, that we have the conversation. And frankly, I'm aiming, and it's my hope and goal for Evansville to be the model throughout the state to show what it looks like to be effective public, charter, and even parochial schools all working together to provide a quality education for everyone.
And Alex, I know we'll move on now. HB 1001. This is the budget bill passed by the Senate Appropriations Committee this week, headed to the Senate for final push now. How's the budget bill looking at this point? I know you touched on it just a moment ago a little bit. Yeah, just as a whole, I kind of want to go back just for a minute. So SB 1 is the priority bill that the Senate has and really presented and had everything to do with property taxes. As we go to turn the page on the House Bill 1001, this is the House priority bill, which is the budget. And I voted against that as well. And I think right now our focus is all over the place as it relates to hearing what our constituents all across the state are saying and what they want, right? Property tax relief has been heard of. Yes, sure, some reform is needed on that front, but as it relates to the budget, we're at a point where our reserves are declining and the average Hoosier isn't seeing any benefit. We're at a point in time where there are so many people who are not in a position to become a first-time home buyer that has no incentive, right? And even going beyond that, there's some things that have to be prioritized. And the Democrats presented an amendment to the bill that would have done so much for the House version to House Bill 1001, and it was simply adding a $2 increase to cigarette tax. We could fully fund our public schools if we were to put that implement that tax instead of going down this pathway that's putting charter schools more on the same footing as public schools when there are so many parameters in place that differentiates the two institutions of learning. We know you're one of the few Democrats at the State House with the Republicans holding supermajorities in both, obviously, the House and the Senate. Wanted to get your take as we move on to kind of another larger topic as well. This is SB 2 dealing with Medicaid and some of the recent funding issues there. It did just pass the House. It's now waiting on concurrence with the Senate. Could you explain what does that bill entail and why you opposed it? Yeah, the focus of that Medicaid bill is, as you may be aware, there was $1 billion shortfall, $1 billion with a B, shortfall on Medicaid coming into this legislative session. And so we were going to have to figure out how we were going to correct that math mistake. And as we have had the conversations that are related to Medicaid, the decision was to cap the number of persons that could go on Medicaid. But then in addition to that, we put some other parameters in place. And so now for those who may sports bet, if one were to make more than $3,000 through that process, they will now be kicked off Medicaid. And the same to be true playing the lottery. If those earnings total $3,000 at any point throughout a given year, that will trigger a Medicaid button, if you will, to kick someone off. That's incredibly problematic. Sports betting has become incredibly popular, and then add this parameter to now penalize people who use the lottery system too, really just puts a lot of questions in the air, and I'm really concerned and to make sure that people who need assistance the most and access to Medicaid have it by any means necessary. Let's move on. This is SB 178. We'll find some common ground. The governor signed it this week. You actually supported it. Recognizes natural gas and propane as clean energy sources. Why do you think that's important? Yeah, there is no issue that has been important to Southwest Indiana more than energy. Everyone has concerns about the utility bills. And as a member of the House Utilities Committee, I wanted to make sure that I'm having any and all conversations possible to make sure that we're able, in this age, with this new federal administration, to make sure that we're on the right side of things, if you will. When it comes to the SB 178, recognizing natural gas as a clean energy certainly puts our energy providers at a benefit. CenterPoint
runs with natural gas. And so you pair that with what's happening at the federal level. And it just so happens that I have a relationship with not only the House ranking minority member of the House Energy Committee, but the chairman of the House Energy Committee is down the street from Bowling Green. And so with that happening all at the same time, my aim is for what's happening specifically to Southwest Indiana to be a model as to how not to proceed across the country. We've been hit hard. There are so many families that are struggling, and this is one way to address that, not through taxes, but through a bill that we get every month that is really top of mind for so many.
And we know, as you just mentioned, people are concerned. I'm sure a lot of your constituents concerned. The IURC a couple of months ago approving CenterPoint's rate case. What is your message? Because we hear it all the time from people that say, contact your representative, contact your representative. They are the ones that could really, hopefully, make some change when it comes to lowering the cost or trying to lower the cost of energy bills. I guess my question for you is, what do you tell your constituents who are right now watching this who are concerned that their bills, continue to go up and there is perhaps no relief in sight?
Yeah, what I can say is I'm at the table. Though I'm a freshman legislator, I've built some strong relationships, both Democrat and Republican, and even had some long, in-depth conversations with the chairman of the House Energy Committee and alongside the Senate Utilities Committee chairman as well. There is a lot of focus right now on energy and how that's impacting all Hoosiers. Going beyond that, one of the things that they'll say and that I say as well is that we're in a period of energy transition. And though our bills are high, there will be plans and things, and there will be things happening sooner rather than later that I hope will address our energy bills. I intentionally sought to serve on the House Utilities and Energy Committee, and I'm there, I have a seat at the table, having some very good discussions, not only with members of the state legislature, but with the governor's office as well.
Alex, I'm curious on HB 1007, as we're staying discussing energy here, same topic, pursuing the construction of small nuclear plants in Indiana. Some of your colleagues would obviously argue that HB 1007 is going to help with energy costs, but we understand that one of the biggest concerns is really who's funding the construction of these plants. It's in the Senate right now. Again, you voted against it. Can you tell us why?
Yeah, sure. I think the biggest thing is that this is largely an unproven technology that is working anywhere else in the United States right now. And so for this unprecedented technology, if you will, I didn't feel comfortable knowing that if it were to fail, this would be on the backs of ratepayers. And for those older than us, those can remember that Marble Hill was a failed attempt just up the road. And as we move forward, we need to make sure that we're exploring all forms of energy, and it's my hope, my aim, that we can include wind and solar into the conversation sooner rather than later. However, right now, as it stands, wind and solar are not a part of the conversation, and frankly, the state Senate, the Senate is not interested in pursuing that, and so those are the conversations that's happening. That is the realness of what we're facing. However, it's looking like Indiana-Michigan Power is going to move forward in Rockport, and I'm looking forward to that happening and learning from it. Through the course of them testifying before, some of the questions that I've asked were about, to the fact about ratepayers. What's happening in Southwest Indiana as it relates to our rates? I want to make sure that doesn't happen to any other communities in the state, and I'm working on that. Hopefully this time next year there will be a lot of legislation passed that relates to benefiting and relieving the burden that so many ratepayers feel as it relates to their energy bills and what they're getting every month.
As you said, energy, a very critical topic that we all talk about in Southwest Indiana. Another really kind of broader topic that I want to talk to you about, also at the federal level and obviously the state level. This is related to SB 289, passed committee in the House, had some floor action on Thursday. Where does the House version stand out? This is the bill related to diversity, equity, inclusion efforts in post-secondary institutions.
Yes, so I am grateful for Chairman Jeter, who offered an amendment to the Senate Bill 289 that really strips any mention of diversity, equity, and inclusion. and really focuses the attention on education action, and really focusing more on what can and can't be done using state dollars. The House version is diluted, if you will, with a focus on making sure that programs that are impacting students and falling under the umbrella of diversity, equity, and inclusion remain. And from my understanding, that there's been some conversations with all the institutions of all the colleges to where this language has been the common ground. I didn't support it, and I frankly think this is the wrong direction and the wrong message that we need to be sending to Hoosiers and to students who are pursuing their higher education in the state of Indiana.
What do you tell your constituents, students that are concerned about seeing this?
Yeah, hopefully, what I tell them is that that there are people fighting for them and making sure that students stay in Indiana and feel like they have a home on their college campuses. This piece of legislation is a part of a national narrative that I disagree with, but we have to figure out how to combat it. And my aim is to make sure that institutions are still able to deliver the services that they need to for the students, and to make sure that every student on campus feels safe, regardless of any demographic.
Alex, you also opposed House Bill 1041 that says that sports must be designated male, female, or co-ed, and that if you're a male assigned at birth, you cannot participate in female-designated sports. It's headed to the governor's desk now. He is expected to sign it. As you mentioned, this is also something that's been in the national discourse. Why did you end up voting against this bill?
Yeah, this impacts less than 10 athletes nationwide. If we were paying that much attention to what's happening with the issue nationwide, why aren't we focusing that much attention on what's happening here in the state of Indiana? Whether we're talking our K through 12 system, our pre-K system, early childhood development, our workforce issues, there's a myriad of things that we could have been spending time on addressing during this legislative session. But it seems like we're going down this pathway of mirroring what the federal government is doing. I think it is really sending the wrong message for those who are here. And at some point, the residents of Indiana want something more than what is happening at the federal level. We need to act on the behalf of those who are here in the state of Indiana and who call Indiana home. Again, I'll continue to beat the drum of our energy bills, K through 12 education, early childhood development. All these things need to be addressed, and we're spending time on things that aren't really impacting everyday Hoosiers.
We want to move on to House Bill 1662. This would have criminalized homelessness. We also saw some local leaders, particularly the CEO of the Evansville Rescue Mission, Tracy Gorman, come out against this. Ultimately, the bill fizzled out due to lack of support, but similar language has now been added to an amendment in SB 197. So what are your thoughts on this issue and how it's been tacked on now to this additional bill?
Yeah, much like on the same day that I heard 289 in the House Judiciary Committee, heard Senate Bill 197, and we actually heard this bill first. And again, here we are dealing with something, instead of addressing the root cause, the issue of homelessness, we're criminalizing it. Thankfully, yesterday in the House, we added an amendment that would allow this to go in effect in July of 2026. That change is critical because Indianapolis is in the process of building a multi-million-dollar homelessness services facility. And this would literally counteract what the House spent their money and time dealing with last year prior to me getting into the state legislature. And so luckily it was delayed to 2026. Hopefully next year we can clean this up and more cities and more communities can have access to what Indianapolis is building. The acronym is escaping me right now, but in essence, it's a homelessness services system. And just like Indianapolis, Evansville has its fair share of homelessness. I would absolutely love to see something like what has been implemented in Indianapolis, whether we're using the old Elder Behrman at Washington Square Mall or the old Health South building on Covert Avenue to become the hub for those who are facing homelessness in this moment.
And Alex, you obviously this is your first session, your freshman legislator. Do you have any concerns though about what's happening on the federal level and what impacts it may have on our state? Obviously, you were on the Evansville City Council for several years, served as the president for one. Your roots are deep in Vanderburgh County and in the state. I'm just curious about what concerns you have about what we're seeing right now in D.C.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that the majority can find its own pathway. And not just mirror what's happening at the federal level. Again, I'll continue to beat this drum of whether we're talking homelessness, our utility bills, our educational system, child care here in the state. So many issues that we really could be spending some time to solve and not make it a Republican issue or a Democrat issue, just focusing on what's best for Hoosiers. And I think if we do that, we could really become a model for this country and how that, we may be a state that is Republican-led, or there was a Republican supermajority, but we're able to get some things done, and that's the angle, that's the perspective that I'm taking in. Yes, I'm in the super minority, but I'm building those relationships and hopefully just trying to impart some wisdom and some direction and just inserting myself when I can to really address the issues that are facing everyday Hoosiers.
How has your first session gone, number one? And number two, I wanted to get just kind of as you were speaking there, just your overall thoughts on the state of politics right now that's going on. And how did your first session go? I know it's not completely over yet, but for the most part.
Yeah, this has certainly been a learning experience. And what I shared with someone not too long ago was like I equate it to leaving fifth grade, going to become a freshman in high school. Just because there are so many different levels of things happening, and everyone has an opinion. Everyone that in the State House was elected and they're there to represent them and they have their issues. Just like the people probably get tired of me talking about my utility bills, there are other issues being talked about in the state where they're very passionate about what their community is passionate about. And so navigating all that has been incredibly eye-opening. But at the same time, the ability to just interact with people, whether I'm talking to the chairman of the committee or another minority member of the House legislature, it's been great. I've enjoyed it, solving problems, and I'm glad to feel like I'm adding value in being in the space.
Indiana State Representative Alex Burton, thank you so much for making time.
No problem. Glad to be here and I'll come back anytime.
In 2 weeks, our scheduled guest is Indiana State Senator Vanita Becker. I'm Noah Alatza, Chief Communications Officer for the University of Evansville. Thanks for watching WNIN Lawmakers.